Which way does these supply curve slope?
Upwards.
Oh, thank you. Yep, up into the sky. So just remember blue for sky. And equilibrium is where? Anyone remember?
Middle.
Yep, where supply and demand intersect. So it would be right here is equilibrium. So as long as you know that, you should be fine. True or false? True or false? A surplus will occur in a market when the price of a product is greater than the equilibrium price. So we're getting this like this graph here. True or false? A surplus will occur in a market when the price of a product is greater than the equilibrium price. What do you think? True or false?
True.
True. Very good. Yep. Hey, you guys did well this weekend up in Washington. So good job. True or false? True or false? If the government increased licensing requirements for beauty salons, the supply curve for salons would shift to the left. If the government increased licensing requirements for beauty shops, the supply curve for salon services would shift to the left. What do you think? True or false?
True.
Pardon me?
True.
True, it is, yeah, because if the government's gonna all of a sudden turn around and start slapping more taxes on us, you know, some businesses may end up pulling out and saying, you know, I don't wanna do this, I'm gonna hold, you know, I'll just go ahead and close up my shop. So all of a sudden, you're not gonna see as many salons out there, so this curve is going to shift to the left. Does that make sense? So the government's going to, make sure you know the difference between demand and quantity demanded. Remember that demand curve can shift either to the right or to the left. And remember, quantity demand just can go from one price to, from one point, like, I don't know, $2, $4, $6, $8. It will just go from one point to another point on that curve. Same with the supply curve, it can shift either way. True or false? True or false? Consumer surplus is the difference between the maximum price the buyer is willing and able to pay for the good and the actual price paid.
False.
Consumer surplus is the difference between the maximum price a person is willing to pay and the actual price they do pay. If you remember, I don't know if I used anyone here in the example of someone was buying a coat for their mom and they thought it was $100, but it ended up being 50% off, so instead of $100, they only paid $50. So they ended up having a consumer surplus. So having said that, true or false? Consumer surplus is the difference between the maximum price the buyer is willing and able to pay for the good and the actual price they did pay. What do you think? True, excellent. It is true. Consumer surplus is the difference between the maximum price paid, or the maximum price the buyer is willing and able to pay for the good and the actual price paid. We talked about making sure you know which way the demand curve slopes and the supply curve slopes. Those are two true-false questions. Talking about dead weight loss, I was into a grocery store this weekend. I guess what they were starting to put up? Christmas stuff. I couldn't believe it. So, true or false? Dead weight loss is a loss of society for not producing the supply and demand determined level of output. Dead weight loss is the loss to society of not producing the supply and demand determined level of output.
False.
Any guesses? I heard a false. Do I hear another? Dead weight loss is the loss to society for not producing the supply and demand determined level of output. Anyone? Is it true? True. It is
Just say
true.
true.
Yeah,
I
it's
said
true. If you
false,
go to
and
that
you said yeah,
definition
so-
on there, it's exactly true. Remember, make sure you know what a price floor is. Remember, price floor, price ceiling is below the equilibrium, price floor is above the equilibrium. So remember that. Price floor is above, price ceiling is below. True or false? A tax placed on a good can make that good relatively more expensive, and its substitutes relatively less expensive. True. Yep. A tax placed on a good can make that good relatively more expensive, and the substitutes relatively less expensive. Think of the when I told you about the gas guzzler tax I had to pay when I bought that Mustang years ago. The feds came out, they were trying to get people to not buy more high horsepower vehicles, or as far as I think it was based off of mileage. And so I had to pay additional, I can't remember what it was, like $500 gas guzzler tax. A tax placed on a good can make that good relatively more expensive, bless you, and its substitutes, bless you, relatively less expensive. And that is true. I'll try to remember to give this one to you as well on Wednesday. True or false? True or false? A shortage of unskilled labor will occur if the minimum wage is set below the equilibrium in the unskilled labor market. And if you look at when we talked about that, hopefully the answer is false on it. I'll end up trying to remember to give that to you guys on there. A shortage of unskilled labor will occur if the minimum wage is set below the equilibrium wage in the unskilled labor, and that is false. Remember that a rationing device is needed because scarcity exists. True or false? True or false? If rice is an inferior good, a decrease in income will cause the equilibrium price of rice to rise. If rice is an inferior good, a decrease in income will cause that equilibrium price of rice to rise. So remember, all of a sudden, our wages have gone down. Now we're going to start buying inferior goods.
True.
So what exactly? True. So that is going to end up raising that equilibrium price. So it is true. If rice is an inferior good, a decrease in income will cause the equilibrium price of rice to rise. Make sure you know what an example of a price floor is and a price ceiling. Remember, we talked about rent and minimum wage on those, so make sure you know the difference between those two. We'll jump up to some multiple choice questions. Make sure you know what a complement good is as well. Make sure you know the difference between brute force beauty, first come, first serve. I want to see if you guys get this one, because a rightward shift in the demand curve for tennis balls would most likely be caused by, so we're seeing a rightward shift in the demand for tennis balls. A rightward shift in the demand curve for tennis balls would most likely be caused by Is it a fall in the price of tennis balls? A fall in the price of tennis rackets? A rise in the price of tennis lessons? Or a fall in income, assuming tennis balls are a normal good?
A.
Okay, so it's, okay, yeah, a rightward shift in the demand curve for tennis balls would most likely be caused by, and believe it or not, it's, okay, the first one we talked about, is it this one, a fall in the price of tennis balls?
Cheaper tennis balls, you buy more tennis balls
Is
too.
it the price of tennis balls?
You're right.
Rackets, exactly, a fall in the price of tennis rackets.
Yeah, see, you're right, I told you. You're right.
Yep, exactly, very good, yeah, it's a fall in the price of tennis rackets. A fall in the price of tennis rackets. Given that frozen yogurt and ice cream are substitutes, a shift in preferences in favor of yogurt would be predicted to do all of the following except, given that frozen yogurt and ice cream are substitutes, a shift in preferences in favor of yogurt would be predicted to do all of the following except, is it increase the demand for frozen yogurt, increase the supply of ice cream, increase the quantity of supply of frozen yogurt, or raise the equilibrium price of frozen yogurt. So given that frozen yogurt and ice cream are substitutes, a shift in preferences in favor of yogurt would be predicted to do all of the following except. Is it increase the demand for frozen yogurt?
Well, yeah.
So we're,
Yeah.
increase the supply of ice cream. Yes, increase the supply of ice cream. That's one thing, it's, would be predicted to do all of the following except if we're having a shift for favor of yogurt, you're not gonna see an increase in the supply of ice cream, you'll see a decrease in the supply of ice cream. So, we'll read the question one more time, I'll give you the answer. Given that frozen yogurt and ice cream are substitutes, a shift in preferences in favor of yogurt would be predicted to do all of the following except increase the supply of ice cream. I'll give you this one. A decrease in the quantity demanded means that price has increased and consumers therefore want to purchase less of the good. Price has declined and consumers therefore want to purchase more of the good. The supply curve has shifted to the left, or the demand curve has shifted to the right. Here's the question again, we'll see if you guys get the answer. A decrease in quantity demanded means that, is it this one? Price has increased and consumers therefore want to purchase less of the good? Very good, yep, it's that one. Price has increased and consumers therefore want to purchase less of the good. Make sure you know what a surplus is, make sure you know what a shortage is. Okay, oil producers expect that oil prices next year will be lower than oil prices this year. As a result, oil producers are most likely to, oil producers expect that oil prices next year will be lower than oil prices this year. As a result, oil producers are most likely to, is it pull some oil off the market this year, thus decreasing the quantity supplied of oil, and lower but not higher prices. Place more oil on the market this year, thus increasing the quantity supplied of oil at lower prices but not higher prices. Hold some oil off the market this year, thus shifting the present supply curve of oil leftward.
Mm-hmm.
Or place more oil on the market this year, thus shifting the present supply curve of oil rightward.
Let's see.
So oil producers expect that oil prices next year will be lower than oil prices this year. As a result, oil producers are most likely to, is it oil? Hold some oil off the market this year, thus decreasing the quantity supplied of oil and lower, but not higher prices. Is it that one? Nope. Place more oil on the market this year, thus increasing the quantity supplied of oil at lower prices, but not higher prices. Very good. Hold some oil off the market this year, thus shifting the present supply curve of the oil leftward. Bingo. It is that, hold oil off the market. Yeah, if it's gonna be lower next year, hey, we wanna hold that stuff off the market. That way we can keep prices elevated, we'll just shift it leftward. Okay, you're gonna have, a graph, be similar to this one, and you'll have, 2 questions relating to it as far as, needing to see if there's a surplus or a shortage. So just make sure you're familiar with the graphs. You'll have a couple table graphs, I guess I could have drawn those out. You'll have several tables that will show, a table with just the price, 5, 10, 15, quantity demanded, quantity supplied, and it'll just have the things in there for you. So you'll have a table, so we'll have 2 questions on it that will relate to questions there. That one's an easy question. Oh, well, I'll give it to you anyway, because it seems like some students kind of mess up on it anyway, so. Which of the following is true? Which of the following is true? Buyers always prefer lower prices to higher prices. Buyers never prefer lower prices to higher prices. Buyers rarely prefer lower prices to higher prices, or buyers prefer lower prices to higher prices, ceteris paribus. So which of the following is true? Is it buyers always prefer lower prices to higher prices?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Buyers never prefer lower prices to higher prices. No? Good, thank you. Buyers rarely prefer lower prices to higher prices. Buyers prefer lower prices to higher prices, ceteris paribus. That's the answer. Buyers prefer lower prices to higher prices, ceteris paribus.
Oh.
Make sure you know what surplus is. I drew this one up, so you may want to draw it out. Here, this one. Because then for some odd reason, it just seems to throw the students. So that's why I drew it out for you. If you want to take a picture of it, please feel free to take a picture of it. It says, refer to exhibit 3.9. A severe recession has sharply decreased the income of consumers. Knowing that X is a normal good, you expect movement in the market from X, for X from. So refer to exhibit 3.9, a severe recession, so people are getting laid off, has sharply decreased the income of consumers. Knowing that X is a normal good, you expect movement in the market for X from, is it going to be A to B? Is it going to go from A to B? Or is it going to go from E to F, F to E, or is it going to go from B to A? So remember, it's a normal good, and during recessions, we don't buy normal goods. We start, or if you get laid off, we're going to start buying inferior goods. So what may happen? And you hit it on the head, Mr. Gerard. Say it.
There you go.
B to A. Yeah, it's going to go. So
was close.
we have, yeah, we have a normal good and, with the recession, you're gonna see less being supplied to the market because people are not going to be buying it, they're going to be buying inferior goods. You've got there will be 3 questions, once again, that'll go to the graphs that you'll need to look at as far as, supply and demand, and, surplus, shortages, and what is the quantity of them. Okay, let's see if I can give you a couple more. An increase in the number of buyers in a particular market for a good will result in a blank for that good. An increase in the number of buyers in a particular market for a good will result in a, hey, how you doing?
Good, sir, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Have a great day.
You guys are so lucky, you have the best teacher on campus.
Here, Dale, here, hang.
Total
I kinda-
serious, best
I
teacher on
I
campus.
kinda try to, you know, I just.
There
you go. Thanks, Dale. I just try to, tell them every now and then, I have to give them some money. Thanks, Dale! So, Dale's great, I've known Dale for years. Dale, we're kind of going off a side street thing here. So Dale retired from the city of, Las Vegas Metropolitan, Police Department. Spent 25 years down there, pulled his retirement, moved up to Idaho. His brother's a doctor up here. And now he's working here at CSI just to have fun, kick back and be with all the young crowds, so it's a lot of fun. So, think of skis and the boards when I ask this question again. Increase in the number of buyers in a particular market for a good will result in a blank for that good. So is it a movement up along the demand curve? A movement down along the demand curve? Leftward shift in the demand curve? Or a rightward shift in the demand curve?
Rightward shift.
Very good. Whoever says rightward shift in the demand curve, that is correct. So an increase in the number of buyers in a particular market for a good will result in a rightward shift in that demand curve. So just as we talked about the ski boards and skis, there was, once those boards came out, there was a rightward shift of that demand for those snowboards. Make sure you know what an inferior good is, and a normal good. One major reason for the law of demand is that, one major reason for the law of demand is that one price changing requires at least one other price to change in the opposite direction. People substitute relatively lower priced goods for relatively higher priced goods. A higher price never reduces quantity demanded by enough to lower total revenue, or people are willing to produce more units at a higher price. One reason for the law of demand is that this one price changing requires at least one price to change in the opposite direction.
Nah.
People substitute relatively lower priced goods for relatively higher priced goods.
Nah.
A higher price never reduces quantity demanded by enough to lower total revenue.
No.
Or is it people are willing to produce more units at a higher price?
No.
So is it that one? No, it's not that one.
Damn.
One major reason for the law of demand is that one price changing requires at least one other price to change in the opposite direction. Nope, it's not that one, so we eliminated two. How about this one? People substitute relatively lower priced goods for relatively higher priced goods. There we go, excellent. Yeah, people substitute relatively lower priced goods for higher priced goods. One major reason for the law of demand is that people substitute relatively lower priced goods for higher priced goods. Just kind of going through everything here, making sure. And make sure you know what a price floor and a price ceiling is, or examples of a price floor and a price ceiling. Red one, let's figure it out. Make sure you know, we talked about absolute price and relative price, so there will be a question in there with a little, you know, if you have to bring a calculator in, that's no problem there. So you'll have to do just a small calculation there, so bring a calculator with you. If you need help with that. That should about do it. There's only I lied to you guys, there's only 49 questions on the test, so not 50.
Dang.
So, well, that's all I have for you